I worked at McDonald's for 5 years. Of course, 3 of those years were just for the summer in the month of December while I was in college. But I assure you, this isn't stolen valor. I flipped those burgers. I salted those fries. I was dehumanized by those customers. And now that I've been out of the game for a while, Ronald McDonald himself told me that I have to return for my recertification. That's why today, we're going to be experiencing Hamburger University by way of McDonald's licensed video games.
Licensed game hell.
As every good crew trainer knows, you start with the instructional videos. In this case, that takes the form of eCrew development program for the Nintendo DS. This game was a Japan exclusive developed for use in their McDonald's stores and was totally lost until 2020 when a guy, who I'm not going to name here because it seems like he's a creep, rediscovered it in an online auction. This game is incredibly novel. I don't speak Japanese, so I did spend a majority of my time pointing the Google Translate app at my screen so I could figure out what was going on, but it's okay, because the best parts of this game transcend language. I'm talking about the cooking mini-games. eCrew development program has a total of 19 mini-games, 16 of which function as essentially McDonald's fry cook simulator, while the remaining 3 are informational blurbs about cleaning the lobby and order of operations for front counter and drive-through customer service. The last 3 are probably the real things you would take away from this in an actual training setting, but other than having adorable characters and cute pixel art work areas, they mean nothing to me as a casual gamer. However, as a former sandwich artist myself, I was absolutely charmed with the sandwich making segments. I liked trying to beat the minigame on the first try totally from memory, though the game has guardrails that would make it pretty hard to really mess up one of the sandwiches. For example, you can't accidentally put tartar sauce on a cheeseburger or lettuce on a fillet of fish. What's tricky is that the game seems to penalize you for missed clicks and speed. So, if you take longer than 50 seconds, or you had to tap the tongs twice to get them to move where you needed them to, but otherwise made the sandwich correctly, you'll still fail. Which is realistic-ish to actual work standards, but I think kind of fails as a training mechanism. I think that putting a strict time limit and no explanations on the making process doesn't make sense if you're showing someone the process of making a cheeseburger for the first time ever. I think that this game would benefit from a tutorial followed by a time mode. Not that I think this game would be incredibly effective as a training device in the first place. This game is really cute, but I just know that the stores that have this used it until the DS ran out of battery and then tossed it into a drawer. Then maybe it got a second life after the crew trainers got lazy and the GM laid into them at a crew trainer meeting about using all their tools, so they charged the DS, but then no one could remember the login, so it went back into the drawer. Okay, maybe that was just what we did with the tablet at my store, but I stand by it. Before I give my verdict, let me list off the other features of eCrew development program. Guidebooks, quizzes, a challenge mode, and if you enter manager mode, you can set up a profile with your crew where they get to pick their own avatar that they'll never see again. It also has pretty good music. My conclusion? 2 out of 5. I really liked certain aspects of eCrew development program, but ultimately, they should have made this training game an actual fun game. And it's the developer's fault, and not mine for expecting a real game out of a training program. The year 1993, and the development team at Treasure brought us McDonald's Treasure Land Adventure for the Sega Genesis. If you know more about video games than me, you might recognize Treasure as the studio behind Wario World for the GameCube, or their first published Sega Genesis title, Gunstar Heroes. McDonald's Treasure Land Adventure, however, was their magnum opus. It follows Ronald McDonald, who finds a piece of a treasure map while on a scroll and decides to go look for the rest of it. He has the ability to shoot magic from his hands to kill enemies, and use a magic scarf to hang from zip lines and hooks that he uses to navigate through 4 different stages: Magical Forest, Magical Town, Magical Sea, and Magical Moon. I can't remember anything about Magical Forest, other than the Hamburglar is trapped in a little room I couldn't figure out how to get into. I am assuming the worst, which is that McDonald's Land has a prison industrial complex, and the Hamburglar is serving his time in solitary confinement, and we're just witnessing a slow descent into madness. Robble robble in peace. The boss in this level is also a giant tomato, so that's something, I guess. I'm really good at video games, so I didn't struggle figuring out how to beat this guy at all, either. But for the people in the back who just won't stop asking, to be able to damage the boss, you have to let him hit you. And then, while he's eating the magic gems that fell out of your pocket, you're able to use your magic hands and deal some damage. Magical Town is a lot more interesting in my opinion. You start off in, and you won't believe this, a magical town. There's little cars that attack you, a high-rise where people throw things at you, and even little sumo wrestlers who randomly make the roads rise and fall. This gives way into a train segment where you fight a bunch of circus freaks who have taken Birdie the early bird captive. You free her, and when the conductor of the train is about to end your life, she flies in and rescues you. Then you move on to the boss fight, which is a star-shaped mech that Ronald defeats with his magic, and you find out was piloted by a scared little guy. Other than having to jump up using your scarf, this also uses the same eat your gems based hit system. The next section is Magical Sea, which is a magical sea. As of writing this, I played this level 30 minutes ago, and one of the only things I can remember about it is that there's a ship with penguins on it. And also, Ronald can breathe underwater. Oh, and the boss is a giant pair of lips dressed as a pirate. It is horrifying and foul to look at, and also it took me way too long to beat. And, surprise surprise, you have to let him hit you so he can eat your gems before you can hit him. Next level. The final stage of McDonald's Treasureland Adventure takes place on the moon, because after Ronald finds all the pieces of the map, naturally they lead to the moon, and the professor just happens to have all the things lying around to send him there. And, because this is a video game, the moon is hostile, kind of like Ray Kroc's takeover of the McDonald's Corporation. Am I right, fellas? This section reminds me of the Scrap Brain Zone from Sonic, but in zero gravity, and also is such a random left turn from the first 3/4 of the game, we literally aren't even in McDonald's Land anymore. You progress through a bunch of grappling-based screens, then drug a lizard lady so you can release the Fry Kids, who form a human bridge that you can cross into the boss zone. This boss is a little alien, and, like the prior ones, he has to hit you so he can eat some gems and you can hit him. This fight was at least a little more memorable because you're navigating through rotating doors to determine which of the 3 levels you end up on for the boss attacks. It was the fight I had the easiest time beating, but the most fun attempting. You have to think fast to get a matching door to the level you need to be on, and the boss is moving too, meaning even if you pick a different level than the boss, he might come right after you. This also might be my favorite boss by sheer virtue of the fact it only took me 2 tries to beat him, rather than the dozens of attempts on the other ones. After you defeat the final boss, he begs for your mercy and gives up his treasure. Luckily, Ronald is a kind and benevolent god and decides not to take the treasure, instead asking for help getting home. The little moon alien opens his treasure chest and a rainbow shoots out, forming a slide that takes Ronald and his friends home. The end. Except for an end slate after the credits that has all the characters saying, "See you." This game looked really good. I thought it was vibrant and did a great job translating characters to 16-bit art. It controlled fine, though I must admit I didn't have that much fun playing it. In fact, I'd describe this gameplay as neutral, which is honestly worse than being bad. 2 out of 5. Unless you're passionate about this style of game, you'll probably get just as much enjoyment scrubbing through a long play on YouTube. MC Kids for the NES, PC, and some other stuff was released in 1992 and developed by Virgin Games. which was actually the other name I considered for a licensed game hell. You play as Mick or Mac, who are helping Ronald McDonald find his stolen bag of magic somewhere in McDonald's land after hearing about his loss on their camping trip. The basic gameplay involves platforming through McDonald's land in search of cards to unlock the next area. You begin in Ronald's clubhouse, which seems to be the McDonald's equivalent of Green Hills Zone. You have a handful of different enemy types, like Snail, Bearded Spider Gnome, and Sid the Sloth, who you can temporarily kill by hitting them with blocks, though they respawn when they're off-screen. There's also a fun little spinner thing you can run across to reverse gravity and jump around on that famous sky grass. The basic mechanics are all fine and well, but the best way I can describe the controls of this game is that they are slippery. This could be my means of playing it, but it felt like I had almost no control over jumping and landing, which is a huge problem for a game where you're literally platforming. It also kind of sucks because I was actually enjoying the level design. This game looks like garbage, but once I got the hang of it, it was kind of fun. Emphasis on kind of, because the longer you play, the more apparent the problems with this game become. Poor controls aside, MC Kids also doesn't have any sort of save or password system. You've kind of got to beat it all in one go, or don't beat it at all. I chose the second option. I really did give it the old college try, and I spent a couple of hours trying over several days, only to spend so much time trying to collect 3 cards in the Grimace zone that I actively began to neglect housework and personal care. I smell bad, y'all. I tried, and not in like the play it for an hour and give up try that I normally do. I persevered. I farmed extra levels in the first level of the Grimace stage so I wouldn't have to game over. I looked at the guides. I died over and over and over again to learn the ins and outs of this game. I even skinned the Hamburglar and tried to wear his pelt as a ghillie suit so I could sneak by to the end. There's a chance I could have beaten this game, but somehow I pressed a combination of buttons that got me stuck in a crouch in the second level of the Professor's Zone, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back. MC Kids is not a good enough game to justify the effort I put into trying to beat it. It's ugly, it controls like garbage, and I think I'm allergic to Hamburglar fur. 3 out of 5, because there is a little tiny part of me who wants to go back and try and beat it again. Grimace's birthday. You drink the shake and you die. Who doesn't remember the classic meme? And I just so happen to have a purple shake right here. I'm kidding. I'm not going to do such an outdated joke. I will, however, talk about the browser/modern Game Boy Color game that was released in the onslaught of promotional tie-ins surrounding Grimace's birthday in 2023. The eponymous title, Grimace's Birthday, has you playing as Grimace, who has to ride a skateboard through the seedy underbelly of McDonald's land, collecting Grimace shakes so he can rescue his friends, Birdie the Early Bird, the Hamburglar, and the Nugget Buddies, and bring them to his birthday party. Your first level is introed with a bisexual, purple-haired baddie who tells you that she thinks she saw the Hamburglar run off with a bag of burgers. She also reminds you that you need to remember to collect enough shakes for all your party guests. And off you go through what may be a subway and also a sewer system that spews toxic gas. At the end, you run into the Hamburglar, who offers you a weak robble robble when you catch him in the act of defacing public property with spray paint. At least he was writing Happy Birthday Grimace. With the Hamburglar behind bars, you answer a panicked text from Birdie. Her friends dared her to jump off the roof, and she did, so now she needs your help. This time, you run, not bored, through a rooftop scene populated with springy squirrels and vicious birds. In the second half of the level, you even get to control a bubble that allows you to float from one end to the other as long as one of the rabid pigeons doesn't get ya. At the end, it turns out that Birdie just cried wolf, and actually just wanted to show you that she had tied the Nugget Buddies to balloons that said, Happy Birthday Grimace. Surely a thoughtful gesture. Too bad she took advantage of Grimace's kindness on his own birthday to show it to him. It really seems like something that could have waited until the party. But alas, With your friends rounded up, the main gameplay is over, and you have nothing left to do but pick out a birthday cake and play a minigame where you blow out candles for extra points. Grimace's Birthday is by far the shortest game I've played since I started my retraining, and for that, I'm thankful. Don't get me wrong, this is also most definitely the best game of the lot, and maybe part of that is that it didn't overstay its welcome. But I think Grimace's Birthday was also just actually good. It has an adorable art style that takes the nostalgia of Game Boy games and interprets it through a modern lens that sands off the crunchy edges. The music is great, the gameplay is simple but engaging, and even though I want to complain about not loving how the skateboarding controls, I think it's absolutely fine given the fact I played MC Kids Club before this. Even the writing was funny. When Birdie tells Grimace, "Hey bestie," it felt very much like the developers were in tune with modern trends and not in a cringy way. My only complaint about Grimace's Birthday is that I wish it was a little longer. I certainly don't think it needed to be a full-length game, but a third level for the Nugget Buddies would have made it feel a little more complete. But that's hardly a knock against the quality of a free promotional game. 5 out of 5. Party on, Grimace! This was a stroll down memory lane for me. Okay, maybe just eCrew development program was a stroll down memory lane for me, but generally, I had a good time with the McDonald's games. I've said this often to my current coworkers who will never quite get it, but if there's a way I could volunteer at a McDonald's for an hour a week where I just worked fries, I would happily take it. Yes, McDonald's is an evil corporation that's made both me and the world at large less healthy, but there's something I miss about the structure and simple repetitive tasks. I made one of my best friends working at McDonald's. When I went away to college, I often couldn't wait to come home for the summer and tell my work family what I'd been up to. For a long time, my store was my home away from home. This is all to say, these games were colorful, interesting, and mostly bad, but the real McDonald's is the friends we've made along the way. And yes, I will do the joke.